Welcome back. So the beginning of 2025 has been quite a ride so far, with uncertainty being the buzzword of the year. So in this video, I wanted to see who the winners have been so far in 2025, why they've done so well when the rest of the market has been crumbling. So let's dive into the top performing sectors, thematic areas, and even specific countries and regions that have been going gangbusters so far in 2025, and what's driving their impressive results. So in this video, I'm going to cover a lot of ground, from European financials to the booming defense sector, and even take a look at some surprising country performances. Plus, we'll see how these stack up against the benchmark of the FTSE All World Index. As we do this, I'll share a spreadsheet that I pulled together to show some ETFs that track each of these high-performing areas. It's worth noting, though, that these ETFs, they're examples, and you should, of course, do your own research if you're interested in investing. So let's kick off by looking at some of the top performing sectors. The review I've done, they've identified two particular sectors that I want to go through. They've really stood out. That's European financials and basic materials, specifically those focused on gold mining. So why are European banks doing so well? Well, there's several factors at play. Firstly, many banks are reporting strong earnings for the end of last year, exceeding the expectations of the market. This has boosted investor confidence. Secondly, a number of the European banks have announced significant share buyback programs for 2025. This tends to support share prices and can make the sector more attractive. We're also seeing a wave of acquisitions within the European banking landscape, which can lead to greater efficiency. And finally, compared to their counterparts in the US, European bank stocks are often seen as attractively priced and offer a higher average dividend yield. Now looking at the basic materials sector, particularly gold miners, they're shining bright due to significant increase in the price of gold throughout 2024 and 2025. Gold's long been that safe haven asset, and with the geopolitical volatility and economic uncertainty that we're seeing, demand for gold has surged. That's certainly fueled by the rising fiscal deficit in the US. It's putting downward pressure on the dollar, making gold a more appealing store of value. Gold mining companies offer investors leveraged exposure to these price increases. So which example ETFs can give exposure to these sectors? For European financials, you might consider something like the Amundi Euro Stocks Banks ETF with ticker BNKE. If you're looking at gold miners, the VanEck Gold Miners ETF, ticker GDX, could be a good option. Alternatively, there's a Legal and General, or LNG, gold mining ETF with a ticker of AUCO. So next up, let's explore some top performing thematic ETFs. These focus on specific trends or ideas. This year, two themes have particularly been strong: China, technology, and defense. So Chinese technology sector has seen a significant recovery in 2025. It's partly due to the impressive ingenuity of the Chinese engineering, highlighted with the launch of their advanced AI models. This has demonstrated, to many surprise, China's growing technological capabilities. Its rally has been largely driven by the private sector innovation, suggesting more of a sustainable growth. Also, a shift in government policy signaling greater support for the tech sector has really boosted that investor confidence. Looking at defense as a thematic area, it's also gained considerable momentum, largely driven, as we know, by the escalating geopolitical tensions and that increase in defense spending by European nations. Many investors are seeing defense ETFs as a hedge against the uncertainty we're seeing. So which example ETFs are perhaps worth looking at for these thematic areas? For China technology, one ETF to consider is the Invesco MCSI China Technology All Shares Stock ETF, ticker MCTS. And for the defense thematic area, Han ETF Future of Defense, the ticker, interestingly, is NATO, NATO. That's gained a huge amount of popularity. Why don't we turn our attention to the top performing countries and regions? While global diversification is key, of course, some specific areas have delivered exceptional returns so far in 2025. These include Poland, Greece, Austria, and Spain. You may ask why Germany has not been included in this list, as ETFs like the Vanguard Germany All Cap ETF, ticker VGER, have achieved an impressive year-to-date return of 15.3%. and a 5-year of 19.52. But that performance, at least for the purpose of this video, is below the 20% 1-year return I wanted to include on these spreadsheets. So let's take a look at Poland. Poland's strong performance is linked to quite ambitious economic plans focused on strategic investments in science, energy, technology and infrastructure, supported by significant EU funding. Turning to Greece, it's benefited from an anticipated peak in economic growth, driven by consumer spending and investment, along with recent sovereign credit rating upgrades. If we look at Austria's positive market trends, partly attributed to increased domestic investment in securities for private pensions, as well as a broader positive sentiment in the European market. Turning our attention to Spain, solid returns are likely driven by the macroeconomic environment. There's been an expected GDP growth and potential interest rate cuts, along with increased investor confidence in key sectors like technology and renewables. So how can we invest in these specific countries and these markets? Well, for Poland, you might consider the iShares MSCI Poland ETF. The ticker is IPOL. To gain exposure to Greece, you could look at the Amundi MSCI Greece ETF, ticker GRE. Now, if you're interested in Austria, there is the X-Trackers ATX ETF, which is ticker XB4A. And for the Spanish market, you might consider the Amundi IBEX 35 ETF, which is CS1. Of course, it's always important to put the performance of these ETFs into context, perhaps have a benchmark. So let's take a look at some of the benchmark, or at least the benchmark I've used against these ETFs. I always look at benchmarks that have got broad global exposure, like the Vanguard FTSE All World ETF, VWRP. And you can see that in the spreadsheet, and you can compare then the returns from 1, 3, 5 years, and also the volatility and how many holdings they have. So there you have it, a rundown of the top performing sectors, thematic areas, and countries that you can get access to through ETFs. It's a bit of an understatement to say that it's been a dynamic year so far, and these areas have shown significant strength for various reasons, which I went through. The ETFs I've shared in the spreadsheet, they give good insight to current and past performance. Of course, you need to remember that while past performance is not indicative of future results, understanding these trends that underpin these ETFs may allow you to make more informed investment decisions. But none of this video should be considered as advice. Make sure you do, of course, your own research. Now, for me, as I look over these ETFs, the ones that look more attractive are those that might suggest that they're underpinned by longer-term changes in the environment, the macroeconomic environment. For instance, the performance in Spain seems to be underpinned by strong fundamentals of GDP growth and lower interest rates and investment in areas like technology. The ETF covering Spain also has a moderate volatility, or at least a volatility that aligns with and similar to the FTSE All World Index. However, the limited number of holdings would be a concern for me. So wrapping up, did any of this surprise you? Well, I was a little bit surprised about how well some of the countries were doing currently. There was no great surprise around defense ETFs and stocks doing well at the moment because of the uncertainty, the geopolitical uncertainty, nor was I particularly surprised that Chinese technology was doing well. But that some of the countries were doing so well was a surprise. What about you? I'd love to hear in the comments if you're interested in any of these ETFs or looking at any of these thematic areas, or indeed you're going to stick with a broad, diversified global index fund like I probably will, even after seeing this information. And you can download the spreadsheet that I created for this video. You can do that from the video description below. And if you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already, and pass on to anyone else you think might find it interesting or useful. Thank you for watching.